Branding isn't just about how it looks, it's about how it works and the entire system that revolves around it. And today, we're going to be creating a brand literally from zero, not just a design with me. We're literally building an entire brand. And yes, it's not a real brand technically, but we're going to make sure it feels like it is. Hi guys, my name is Aliyah. Welcome back to my channel. I am a graphic designer who specializes in branding. And honestly, I've done a few design with me videos. They were a long time ago, almost an entire year. So we need to do them again. And honestly, be a lot more consistent. I thought of just starting with this video here, another design with me, but one that's a lot more in depth. We're going to be starting with the brand strategy, moving on to the mood board, and then on to the initial concepts that we will design together, and then on to the final concept that we picked to move forward with. From there, we're going to be creating mockups and just making this brand feel alive. Let's get started. Before I touch any of the design process, I always want to start with a brand strategy. In this case, we're going to be doing a mini brand strategy. Strategy is the foundation that ensures the branding actually works for a business, rather than just looking pretty and aesthetic. For every section, I've defined 3 specific keywords to keep our visual DNA tight and intentional. The brand vision is to make high-performance Korean skincare feel like a relaxing mental escape for people living in busy cities. The 3 keywords for brand vision are modern, healing, and essential. The mission statement is providing simple, high-tech skincare that uses advanced Korean formulas to protect the skin and calm the mind. The big idea: clinical glow, high-tech, calm. Brand values: honest, effective, and peaceful. Target audience: fast-paced, visual, quality-focused. Tone of voice: clear, accurate, and grounded. And the brand personality. So it's going to be a balanced and lucid character that really stays organized and clean, but also adds a pop of bright, soulful energy. The keywords for brand personality are polished, vivid, and approachable. With this foundation set, now every design decision that we make for body and soul is now a calculated protocol, and it just makes things a lot easier since you now have those guidelines and that strong strategic foundation. Once the strategy is set, I move into the visual research. For Body and Soul Mood Board, I curated a mix of high-end packaging and raw photography that really balances that clinical precision with a soulful human touch. I just went on Pinterest for this one, but usually I would go through Behance, Pinterest, even on Instagram and see other designs that are within the industry and see what works and pull those together and just slap it onto my Adobe Illustrator file. But for this mood board, I was specifically inspired by the use of like aura gradients masked behind geometric shapes or even logo marks. I think it's a perfect way to go in and add a scientific glow without overwhelming the clean clinical aesthetic, which you would see mostly here in these 2 images as well as this one. I also pulled some fluid flowing scripts just to contrast those sharp, simple serif fonts. I'm not sure if we're going to end up using them, but I really like the idea of using them, so we'll see how that goes. I just think that these fonts could be perfect for giving the brand that urban calm energy. As for the photography, I did include 3 pictures here. I specifically chose these pictures because they feel raw and approachable, ensuring that the brand really just stays grounded and feels real. Of course, I went ahead and added in some keywords to the mood board as well, just so we stay on track. I think every image here was chosen because it does align with these 4 visual pillars that we took from the mini brand strategy itself. So we have clean clinical, scientific glow, modern minimal, as well as urban calm. Honestly, I just use these reference images and inspiration as the blueprint basically for the design process, just ensuring that everything just feels both high tech and incredibly peaceful, relating back to Body and Soul's brand strategy. Honestly, this was a really quick look, but if you guys want to see a video focused entirely on my full strategy, mood boarding, and inspiration process before I even touch any part of the design process, please let me know and I can definitely do that. So moving on to the design phase, I always start with the typography, and you guys have seen in my previous videos how I just put the brand's name in probably 20 different typefaces. And from there, I'll go ahead, put some aside, and then point out the ones that I like most. So I went ahead and picked 3 of my favorite. I put 1 of them on the Concept 1 artboard and then 2 of them on the Concept 2 artboard, just in case we wanted to explore with combining different typefaces. The typography of any brand or logo acts as an expert guide, so I did explore a range of different serifs, from sans serifs to serifs. Most of the sharper serifs feel a lot more clinical and high-end, while the softer sans serifs lean more into that modern minimalistic aesthetic. But in the end, I went ahead and picked the ones that stood out to me most because I had some kind of idea in my mind on what I wanted to do. So for both of them, you can see they're kind of similar but yet different. For Concept 2, I really wanted to play around with the kerning and see if putting the letters a lot more tighter together will look a lot better, just so it actually stands out and it's not just the typeface itself that's being used without any adjustments. So I really like how that turned out, and I'm just playing around with how the secondary logos can be laid out. They're both pretty similar for both of the concepts, but I do think it works because of using that and, as well as its 2 other words that we need to incorporate. So 3 things. It's kind of hard to layer them without being a little bit similar. I thought that worked best. Overall, the goal for these choices was just to create a visual language that feels really smart and purposeful for body and soul. We aren't just picking pretty fonts, we're selecting tools that communicate that skin, health, and scientific backing without losing that peaceful Zen seeker energy that we want for body and soul. Okay, so now that we have Concept 1 and Concept 2 down, not completely, but we're almost there. So for this one, we have some variations of the logo. We can definitely use one of these or maybe both of them as the secondary. Same thing again, for Concept 2, we can use these as the primary logos and then these as the secondary. Honestly, it's a little bit of the same, but I really like the idea of stacking it that way. So let's go ahead and play around with some ideas on how we can create the submark. So I did do some research, and apparently Korea has a butterfly that's really known and native to their country. So let's go ahead and search that up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So let's see here. I saw that one of the most popular butterflies there is the swallowtail butterfly, and it's absolutely beautiful, especially the tiger swallowtail butterfly. I've never seen one like that, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that image and put it next to our concepts just so we can use it as reference or maybe tied in some way. I don't think I want to use any kind of illustrations or imagery for this brand, but I would think using a butterfly to inspire the submark would be a good way to have some inspiration there and a little bit of guidance. Since I already created outlines, I'm going to go ahead and take some of the letters I think would be good to try to make a submark out of. I think the S might be the easiest, but I'm going to go ahead and take the S and the B. I'm going to copy and paste that down here. I just make duplicates of everything so I can always go back to them. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Object, Transform, and then Reflect. Most obvious thing I'm seeing here is that the B can kind of look like wings, especially if you reflect it and then put it side by side. But I think it looks a little bit too geometric. It doesn't really go with body and soul and the brand personality, so I'm not really sure about that. And honestly, I don't know if I'm seeing a butterfly or a bee wings, so I'm not really sure about that. So let's go ahead and try with the S. I know we can try with the B and the S, but I think keeping it more simple and choosing one letter to work with to make a submark might be a little bit better and not be such a busy submark. Let's try putting it on the other side. That is kind of pretty. Let me show you guys what I'm thinking here. So it's not exactly a butterfly, but when I put it this way, I don't like the heart that I'm seeing, and it doesn't really give any symbolism of a butterfly. So I'm going to go ahead and move it to the other side and see if that would help. Honestly, I do kind of like this idea, but I want to try one more thing to see if we can just tie it all together. So I'm going to go ahead and actually take the O and bring it down. Instead of just using a normal circle, I want to see if this could tie it all in and just placing it in between just to balance it out a lot more, since there is a lot of white space in the middle. Obviously, we would go ahead and cut out what doesn't need to be there regarding the overlapping on the S's at the bottom. But I just want to get an idea of how this could work. I do kind of like the idea of it being filled rather than it being an outline. It kind of balances it more, but I don't want to use just a plain circle. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce back to concept 1 and see what we can do for a submark for concept 1, just as we did for concept 2. Honestly, the first thing I see in the submark would be the and. I think it's very different, and maybe we can make something out of that. See, automatically when I put these and symbols together, I see a butterfly. Like, I can see a butterfly, but I'm also seeing a cartoon character's arms and legs and a little body over here. So I'm not sure. We're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. I'm just going to bring in a circle and see if that ties it all together to make it look more like a butterfly without being too in your face, like, hello, this is a butterfly. So I'm just going to go ahead and unite these shapes together. Because we did create outlines, now they're considered shapes, so we can go ahead and use the Pathfinder tool much easier. So now that is all connected. So if I were to go ahead and add a stroke and remove the fill, it would be connected. See, like now that really looks like a butterfly, right? Do we want to go that on point? Maybe. I still think it's simple enough to work, but I'm honestly not in love with it at the same time. These are not refined, these are not the final versions, but once we choose a concept we want to go with, then we'll go in and truly refine. If this were a real client or a real project, you would most definitely make sure everything is as polished as possible. So everything needs to be put together as if it is the final product. Obviously, you're going to get feedback from your client, or maybe not. I think it is good to keep that in mind, is always thinking, what if I were the client in this situation? What would I want to see delivered to me? How would I want it to be broken down, just so I can understand everything and why everything works? Obviously, you don't want to overwhelm them, but at the same time, you want to make sure everything does make sense, down to every single detail. Okay, so I went ahead and played around and kind of got it to what I'd like it to be at for each of the concepts regarding the submarks. But let's just go over it one more time. So we have concept 1 and we have concept 2. So for option 1, we have the primary logo, the secondary logo options, as well as the submark options here. Let's go over to concept 2, which is the same thing here. We have the primary logo, the secondary logo options, as well as the submark. Would you guys would have went with concept 1 or concept 2? Let me know down in the comments and let me know why. I just love to hear what people are thinking and their perspective of things. So I had some time to think, and I've chosen the concept that I'm going to move forward with, and I'll just go ahead and go over it with you guys and let you know my reasoning behind it. Concept 1 explored more of like a traditional wellness direction. However, I do think it is a little bit too obvious to my liking, and I do think it is a little bit too playful in a way. I'm going to move forward with concept 2 for a couple of reasons. I think because the brand exists at this intersection of like high performance, Korean skincare, and calming self-care, I think this identity or logo suite is definitely going to need to balance both of them clinically and emotionally. So they need to both have that clinical and emotional presence. I think the form here, even though I was a little bit iffy with it at first, I think it is a lot more intentional than the submark in concept 1 that was a little bit too obvious. Okay, so I went ahead and played around with a couple different color palettes, and honestly, it was a little bit hard this time. These aren't really the normal colors that I would lean into just as a personal preference, honestly. But I went ahead and explored these 3 different color palettes here. I always love a purple and orange moment. The orange, it's a little too energetic, and we are definitely not going for that. So I went ahead and played around with another color palette here, adding in those purple blue tones. So honestly, right off the bat, I was leaning towards this one. I wanted to explore some with some pinks. Honestly, I'm not really a pink girly. I never really lean towards anything pink. It's definitely overused because when I was doing some research on Korean skincare products, a lot of them were purple or pink. I didn't really want to lean towards that, but I wanted to see how it looked with the logo suite. So I went ahead and applied each of them to the logo suite to see how it worked together. This one is definitely what we're going to move forward with. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys would have done something different. Honestly, throughout the entire video, I'm probably going to ask that like 10 times, but I really want to know what your personal opinion is or your creative perspective on what you would have done differently, or if you would have gone in the direction I did as well. I think this color palette really works well with body and soul. I think right away, like blue is giving that hydration, calm, and it's also relating back to like that scientific glow, which is really good. It's giving that clinical premium feel while also relating back to that glowing lab that we mentioned in our mood board and brand strategy. Obviously, we don't want to copy or go on trend. It's never the right choice to go with what's on trend, but there are certain things that just fit better and just work better within that industry, but more importantly, for the brand itself. So the color palette does consist of 5 different colors, but honestly, I never really weigh in the white and black. I always add a white and black. I'm gonna go ahead and move that over onto our color palette artboard, just so we have everything as organized as possible. So it's a lot easier to go back and when we create the packaging or any kind of mock-ups or just bringing this brand to life, a lot easier to go back when everything is a little bit organized. Honestly, whenever I create a brand, I always have at least 2 files running on Adobe Illustrator. The one where I'm literally dumping all my ideas in, playing around with absolutely everything. It's crazy and chaotic, but I think being able to see everything really helps me narrow down the direction I want to go in, or do I go with this refined version or that one, blah, 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 like that. So I usually have like one chaotic file open and then I have one that's a lot more organized, so I can always go back, pull things from it. Just makes things a lot easier. But I think you just learn that along the way, and honestly, everyone has a different system or a different way of doing things, especially when it comes to organizing your files or just the way you work. But for me, chaos is crucial and it's definitely a part of the process. Okay, so now I'm definitely gonna go through Envato Elements and just trying to find mock-ups on how I want to bring this brand to life and what I think it will look best or that I want to play around with and see. So Envato Elements is definitely my go-to platform, especially for fonts or even just graphic templates, which are mockups. They're a lot easier to use. Instead of making mockups from scratch, I usually don't, to be honest, but I'll usually go in here, especially for passion projects. You will definitely see soon in this video how I do it all in Photoshop and how these files are actually already set up to make it so much easier. It's like a plug and play. They make it super easy. So shout out to everyone who does create mockups. Honestly, it's a great skill to have if you're able to create them yourself. I absolutely want to and would love to learn how and just bring that into my workflow. But at the moment, I'm playing around with that and I have a lot to learn. So now that we have the mockups that we want to use picked out, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how it works, like regarding downloading it and just the process of doing that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the entire process with this one here, just so you guys can see how to download it, how to open it up in Photoshop, and so on. So we'll go ahead and click the download button here. So once that's downloaded, we're gonna go ahead and open it up. So once that's downloaded, it will download into a folder. Usually they would have a instructions PDF, which they do here. It looks like it, but I'm just gonna go ahead and double click on the PSD file, which is the Photoshop file. Okay, so once that opens up, it's pretty straightforward. It really depends on the person who created the mockups, how they structured all the layers. Most of the time, they make it really easy to navigate and find how to insert your designs so that it pops up. And you're gonna go ahead and look to the right side where the layers are, and that would show you where to go. So here you can see cosmetic jar 1 and then jar 2, as well as the background. The background you can put to transparent, or you can just go ahead and change the color and put a hex code that you want. So you're gonna wanna go ahead and click on, let's say we're gonna work on the jar 1 first, which is actually this one. So you can see here when I do hover over it, putting the selection on where it is. Usually they do name the layer that you need to use in order to put your design in. So they have that here that says add your design, and you're gonna go ahead and double click on it. And once it opens up, this is where you would insert your design. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete what they have here first. So I will have Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop opened at the same time. So what I would do is just open up Illustrator, go ahead and copy the asset that I want to bring in. So for this instance, it's going to be the submark. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it, then click on Photoshop again, go back to Photoshop, go in and paste it. Here it's going to ask you if you want it in layers, a smart object, pixels, path, or shape layer. Honestly, I usually do pixels. So let's say you put it as a smart object and then you go back into Illustrator and change the color of that asset that you brought in. It will change it in Photoshop. So that's why I usually do pixel, just so anything I do in Adobe Illustrator is not going to affect that asset that I just added into Photoshop. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as pixels layer and insert it and click OK. As you can see, it drops it right in. I'm going to go ahead and click done, or you can just click return. So I placed it, but I didn't save it yet. So when I go back to the mockup file, nothing has been changed. So let's say now I save it. So it's going to be Command S, or you can just go up into File and then click Save. And then once now that I saved it, if you go back to the mockup file, you will see the change has been made. Okay, so since we're pretending that Body and Soul is a real brand and we're actually producing and designing the packaging for them, we're gonna need the text to put on it. So my idea was for this mock-up, we're gonna have a foaming cleanser paired with a moisturizer. Obviously, we're gonna make it sound better. We're gonna give each product a name. We're gonna make it all look really legit. So let's go ahead and go back into Adobe Illustrator, and because I don't want to use the same typography that we used for the actual logo suite, I want to go ahead and look back at the typefaces that I liked best and see what could pair best. I'm just going to go ahead and bring the text that we did use for the logo suite up here, just so I can see which one we used, and then go ahead and pull some other typefaces to see what will look best as the brand supporting typography. So I played around with some different fonts that we would be using for the supporting typography. I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with the sans serif one. It's not the same font we use for the logo suite, but it's not clashing and it's keeping it simple while still drawing the attention to the actual logo. So I think we're going to go ahead and stick with this one. So now that we have the text down that we will put on these mock-ups, so one will be a foam cleanser and the other will be a recovery cream. First, we're going to start with the foaming cleanser. Usually there is a spot here that the designer, the creator of the mock-ups puts that you can just change the color of the packaging or whatever it is. We're going to go ahead and double click on the color and paste in the hex code of that gray from our color palette. So far it's turning up a little bit too white, so I'm not sure if we're going to go through with it, but let's see. For here they do have a smart layer that holds both the design you want to put as well as the color of the mock-up. So we're just going to go ahead and double click in there again, and because they already have this background here, I'm just going to hide it and go over to the rectangle tool in Photoshop, drag a rectangle on top of it, and then double click where it says fill, just so then I can go ahead and change the hex code in here. I don't know if we're going to go ahead with the gray. Off the bat, I think it is way too light, so we're going to go ahead and try the blue on it. So I went ahead and changed the colors of the jars in the mock-up, and I think we're going to stick with this, so that vibrant blue purplish color for the foaming cleanser, and then the light gray for the moisturizer or cream or whatever. And now we're going to go ahead and put in all the little details to make it come to life. Here I was just doing a lot of the same thing repeatedly, of placing in the asset, saving it, going back, see how it works with the layout and everything like that, repeat it over and over again. So I just sped that up for you guys so you weren't stuck there watching that. Also, I just wanted to point out, you don't have to do what I'm doing here of just copying the text from Adobe Illustrator and then bringing it into Photoshop. You can just put the text in there itself without having to do that. Let's go ahead and design the serums mock-up. It's basically the same process repeated. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the mailer box packaging design. And I think this one is going to be a lot of fun. We can definitely experiment a lot more with patterns and things like that. And that's definitely what I want to do here. I think designing for a mailer box is really fun but it's also really, really crucial and important because you always want to provide your consumers with an unboxing experience. There's certain brands that are just known for their unboxing experience, so that's what people are most excited for. It's not even just for the product, but it's to have that experience itself. In Adobe Illustrator, how to make patterns is basically grab the asset that you want to use to make a pattern out of. For this instance, we're using the submark. You're going to go ahead and click on it, go to object at the top. At the bottom, you're going to see pattern, click that, and then click make. And then here you can just adjust things like the spacing between everything. You can unlink it so it's not automatically moving both of the spacings. And you can also honestly do anything within here, have a lot of fun with it. It's a lot of fun to play around with and learn. But I also just went ahead and ended up tilting the submark a little bit just so it's a little bit different. Honestly, I have a lot of fun with playing around with patterns. This one's a little bit more simple, but it does make such a huge difference when bringing a pattern into a brand identity, especially when it comes to packaging designs. They're a lot of fun. As you can see here, I also added in a little message and on the top of the box when it is opened. So it says the sole protocol is now in session. Just something that came to my head. I thought it would be fun to play with and it just adds to that unboxing experience. I also made some adjustments to the mockup within Adobe Illustrator because I didn't have that flexibility within Photoshop. So I just drew with a pen tool over where I wanted to change the color, and then I also played around with the transparency just so it matches a little bit more. Well, that's it for body and soul. I had a lot of fun creating this, and honestly, this video might be a little long, but let me know what your guys' thoughts were, everything about it, all those questions I asked throughout the process. Would you have gone with concept 1 or concept 2 of the logo suite? I would absolutely love to hear what you guys would want to see next. I'm open to any of your ideas and anything that you guys would want to see, whether it be more designs with me, or would you guys like to see more in-depth videos focused more on the strategy side of things? Would you guys want to see some challenges, like maybe 10 logos in 10 minutes or something like that? Please let me know and drop all your thoughts and opinions down below. I will be reading the comments and replying to all of you. So I'd love to hear all of your feedback and any suggestions that you might have. Thank you again so much for watching. And just a quick heads up, this was a brand identity brief challenge on Instagram. I will pop it up here. There will be winners. Most of them do allow the audience to vote on who they think the winner is. So if you guys want to see who won this challenge, definitely go ahead and check that out. I probably wouldn't have posted my designs, but it doesn't hurt to see what other designers are making. And honestly, it's great for inspiration and just seeing what other designers are creating and get your creativity flowing. But thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.